Hey everyone, my name is Dylan,
And I'm Jeremy.
and thanks for tuning in. Today we are talking about the HEAVYS headphone designed for metal, and more specifically, for the live show experience. So, Jeremy, are you a metalhead?
I would say that I am. I do listen to metal as my primary genre for listening. And yourself?
Absolutely. In fact, we're sort of striking while the iron's hot because last night both of us went to two different metal shows. And so this headphone claims to sort of replicate that experience. So after, just last night having that experience, we can sort of say whether or not this meets that.
Yeah. We were really excited when these got announced because never before has there been a headphone that was marketed specifically towards metal listening. We both play electric guitar. We both go to shows all the time. We were both in bands. And more importantly, we're both audiophiles. So, Dylan, you were the first one to kind of experience these out of box.
Yeah.
Would you tell me a bit about your experience right out of the box?
Yeah. So, just kind of getting them. My initial impression was like they're pretty lightweight. It's an overall like decent build, pretty comparable I think to many other like active noise canceling headphones. They're sort of bigger than maybe some other headphones on the market. I feel like most of the consumer grade active noise canceling headphones are maybe a little bit slimmer, a little bit more cheek, but these are a little bit bigger. But yeah, I thought like out of the box, pretty good build overall.
The construction in general is fairly good, fairly decent. Most of the problems with these kinds of headphones is you put it into a case, and in order to do that, you kind of have to shrink it down. So based on the size of your head, there is this breaking point here, which is metal, so that's not really a concern here.
Yeah, they use like a Japanese steel of some sort for that headband.
Yeah, and then there's leather around here, good quality construction, but there was a issue that you were noticing right out of the box that you were talking about.
So like after a few hours of use, when I went to go and put them away, what I found was that you sort of develop all these oils right here on the pads, and you go to put them away. Well, what happens is when you do that, you got these oils back here, and they end up just pressing onto the other ear cup, and so you end up getting this sort of like smudge all over the shell back here, and so we can fit it into the case here, which is honestly a little bit unintuitive. But yeah, you just would go to put them away, and then you'd pull them out, and you just see this like smudgy mess, and then you're like, oh, that's sort of embarrassing.
Yeah,
looking.
which the average user is probably not going to take the time to wipe these down after every single use. Especially if you're like commuting, you're late for the bus or the train or something, and you're just going to throw it in there. But everybody's going to see that smudge once it's out of the case, which is very unfortunate.
Oh yeah, definitely. That being said, like once I was spending more time with them, again, like after the first like 2 to 3 hours, really the first thing I sort of noticed in terms of its comfort was like, man, there's the clamping force was kind of hard on my jaw. So I actually had to spend some time to stretch them out like over a box, just to sort of relieve that initial pressure. But I think since then for me, it's been better.
Yeah, and I unfortunately didn't get to experience them out of box, the same pressure that you did have. So I imagine that these are a lot less strain compared to then. But I did notice that after about an hour of use, these did start to feel a little uncomfortable. Primarily, it developed hot spots in the top right here, just right at the apex of the arch at the top of the headphones, and then the pressure as well from just the ear cups. If you have large ears like mine, initially with that pressure force, these do have a good amount of cushioning on the ear pads, and they're a good depth, but with that pressure coming from the side, it's going to press up against your ear, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable after a little while.
Yeah, I would say to that effect, like for me, I have sort of a slightly different experience. I think now I don't really have the clamping force problem as much, but I definitely share the same kind of thought about this padding right here.
Yeah.
I definitely develop a hot spot. So after maybe like an hour or two for me, it just becomes less comfortable and I have to take them off.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So going into the controls here, I just got to be honest. They're sort of overcomplicated and non-intuitive, I think. You've got these, like, you have a volume dial here, you've got a back and forth button here. The volume dial happens to also be a button, which you can also double press or triple press to go back and forth. You've got the toggles here to power on, then to go to the hell blocker mode, which is active noise cancellation. You've got your Bluetooth pairing over here. Honestly, I would have preferred just like slim it down, couple buttons, and a volume dial.
Yeah.
And it would have just make things easier. That being said, it's not something to harp on this headphone too much about, honestly. Like, you'll get used to it.
Right.
And I did get used to it.
The only issue that is really bothers me about the control scheme is you press those at the same time to activate the transparency mode, and them being towards the back, in order to kind of crank your arm around in order to activate them, it's a little awkward to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be fast.
No, this is sort of an uncomfortable experience, like sort of figuring out where to even pivot. Because if you do it without like holding on to it, you're sort of just pushing the headphone off your head. So you have to use like 3 fingers, basically.
Yeah.
Or you basically have to get your thumb on there,
exactly,
just to get access to it.
And and if you know there's an ambulance coming, or if there's somebody who's trying to talk to you, it's going to take a second for you to activate that. It's not, unfortunately, the quickest method there. That being said, these were marketed for the live sound experience. Then the sound is primarily why you would buy headphones, correct?
Yeah.
We both went to a show last night. So how did these compare to that live sound?
A live show is a multisensory experience, right? When you go to a show, you get the visuals, you get the performance of the band, you have the whole crowd, the vibe of the crowd.
Yeah.
Even where you're standing in the crowd can have an impact. It's sort of an emotional response too.
Absolutely.
And so this takes only one of those things. And honestly, if I were to argue, the worst part about it.
I agree.
A show, like whenever you go to a live music show, it's just way too much bass, overwhelming. You don't really get to hear the guitars all that well oftentimes.
Yes, often synthesizers as well. It's like just bass drum, and then you can kind of hear the vocals.
You're at the mercy of the amphitheater or whatever the room is that you're in, as well as the mixing engineer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this, unfortunately, sort of meets that expectation.
Exactly.
It's not what I want personally. You go to a live show for all those other things combined, and this, I don't want just that sound. It's the worst part of the entire experience.
And to be clear, what we're talking about is very, very overpowering bass. The mid-range, especially the upper mid-range, is subdued quite a bit. And then it's very tinny with the treble. Very, very muffled, mushy low end. And then you can hear cymbals, but they're like shopping carts crashing against a wall.
The guitar is really the defining characteristic of metal music. This just sort of takes all the energy out of the guitar, and individual notes, especially in a chugging pattern, they just end up bleeding together.
Yeah.
And so you don't really hear the tightness of chugging. So, you know, while I personally don't think that this is particularly great for listening to metal, especially modern metal productions, surprisingly, ironically, it's actually not bad for pop music.
Yeah, pop, R&B, even some forms of EDM actually sounded pretty great. The bass actually really lends itself to that kind of bass and vocals style of music.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, I don't think this is a headphone that I'm going to reach out for too much. I think like maybe like casual use, like a YouTube video or something like that.
We did just in case test this for other forms of entertainment. We tried videos. movies, YouTube. I tried some video games, because if this is going to be your only headphones, you can only buy one. I wanted to make sure that's going to work for everything. Unfortunately, for those like high octane video games like Apex, I played some Armored Core on these as well. There's no directionality. The bass unfortunately drowns all of it out. So anything that has explosions, I can't really recommend it for. So for video games, for movies, not great, but you could absolutely watch some YouTube videos.
And it's a little bit disappointing, especially because in this design, you have 4 drivers in each cup, right? So your initial thought is you might have better directionality because you have your 2 woofers here and then your 2 tweeters right here. But honestly, I'm just getting sort of a wall of sound effect.
Yeah, really. And that does kind of cater towards that live sound experience. There's not a lot of directionality in live sound. So they do, in my opinion, do the live sound really well.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing that they do well outside of the sound actually is they attenuate noise pretty well just passively.
Yeah.
Right. You can put these things on your head, and a lot like many studio like recording headphones, like closed back headphones, they just block out a lot of sound without even turning them on.
Yeah.
So I was really honestly kind of impressed by that. I will say that I don't think the ANC does a whole lot to add on. But it's a gentle active noise cancellation. It's certainly serviceable.
Yeah.
But yeah, how is the transparency mode?
The transparency mode, I would say, is also muffled, unfortunately. You're not going to be able to hear a full conversation through them, unfortunately. But it should be noted that with every one of these mobile headphones, wireless headphones with controls on them, they usually give you some sort of notification of what you're doing. For example, if you turn on the hell blocker mode or the ANC mode on this, instead of getting like a beep or a gentle voice, you get this doom voice. Unfortunately,
we'll just like turn it on. So here's it being turned on.
Power on.
And now with the hell blocker
activated.
And it should be noted that if you just turn them off from the hell blocker mode straight, it will tell you all along the way what it's doing.
Hell blocker terminated. Power off.
Yeah.
So you're going to be hearing that a lot, and it's very loud and boomy because of the accentuated bass. It ended up being fairly uncomfortable for me to listen to after a while.
It's sort of, I don't know. It's definitely just tapping more into their marketing, if anything, that this is a headphone for metal.
Right. It does come with a microphone feature, but it is unfortunately a bit muffled. It's still serviceable for a phone call, and you will absolutely hear everything in the background.
Yeah. So if you're taking a phone call, I mean, the person you're talking to is sort of going to hear all the background noise.
Yeah.
It's not going to be great for louder environments, but if you're in maybe like a private booth or something like that, or a room and things are quiet, then I think it'll be probably fine for taking a call on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, kind of dialing back to the connectivity, actually, you have the 2.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter. They do sell a cable for that. You do have the USB-C for charging, but also for the wired DAC mode. And then you also just have Bluetooth 5.1, and 2 devices can be paired simultaneously, but I believe only one can be actively playing to it.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
The battery life on the website, it says up to 40 hours with the ANC mode on, and up to 50 hours without the ANC mode. For daily commuter purposes and stuff, you can throw these in your backpack. You're not going to have to really worry about these shutting off on you unexpectedly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I use them at work, just on and off. And if you just have good regular charging habits, like this is going to be perfectly fine. At the price of $249 plus shipping at this time, $15 shipping, should you buy Heavies?
Well, I must admit that they do live up to the expectations that they set. They do give you that kind of live sound experience. But for me and for my metal listening experience, I would rather have the wide frequency range. But for what they do and for what they offer at a $250 price point, you can get quite a lot more from other headphones in the same price.
Oh yeah, I would
category.
argue that you should be getting something like a Bose QC35 or
Agreed.
QC45, Sony XM4. You could even get a Razer Barracuda Pro or Sennheiser Momentum 4. There's so many other headphones in that sort of price segment, and many of those brands already have like companion apps today, where you can customize the EQ and things like that. Whereas right now, at this time, there is no companion app. They do say that it should be launching that app come November, but we should also, be evaluating not on the premise of a promise. So as of right now, there's nothing. There's no way to change the tuning, the sound profile.
Yep.
You get what you get today.
Yeah, and if you do, if audio is your primary concern for getting headphones, wireless headphones specifically, and you don't necessarily need that ANC mode or transparency mode, I would say that we would both highly recommend the Odyssey Maxwell. They are marketed as gaming headphones, but they are genuinely some of the best sounding wireless headphones for in that price category. It's a little bit more expensive than this, but stretching your budget, I think it would be absolutely worth it.
Yeah, at $299 to me, it's sort of a no-brainer. I really feel like there's not much that I'd be reaching out to the heavies for.
No,
honestly.
And honestly, on the move, I would rather just pick up my Apple AirPods Pro. They're going to sound better, and they're a little bit more convenient than this. The main thing that I would reach for big headphones, over-ear headphones like this is for a better sounding experience, and unfortunately, for what I need, they don't deliver.
Absolutely. I'm 100% with you. If you're a backer yourself, drop a comment below if you've received yours, or what your thoughts are on the HEAVYS headphones. And if you enjoyed this conversation, we would really appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and get subscribed for more content like this. See you next time.